Hello and welcome to Ask the Candidate. I'm Steve Kime with the City of Enid. Thank you for joining me today. And joining me in the Enid Television Network studios is Drew Edmondson. Drew is a candidate for governor for the state of Oklahoma on the Democratic ticket, if you will. Drew, first off, welcome to Enid Studios. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Steve.
And appreciate the opportunity to sit down and just visit a few questions. A lot of folks are familiar with the Edmondson name. They're familiar with Drew Edmondson. And so with that familiarity, in your administration as governor, Drew, how would you get people to work together? Because I think folks now, after the dust is settled, after the recent legislative session, people are kind of wore out, and they're just saying, what can we do to get along? So what would you do?
Well, in the first place, it'd be nice if members of the legislature were talking to each other instead of yelling at each other. So there's going to be some turnover in the legislature. I think the Republican Party will probably still control both houses. But I believe sincerely that the people who are elected in 2018, whether they're Democrat or Republican, are going to come to Oklahoma City with a new sense of urgency about what needs to be done to fix the problems that are facing our state. I'm a great believer that personal contact alters opinion. I've always worked across party lines. When I was DA in Muskogee, I was president of the DA's Association, so we did a lot of the legislative work, and 16 years as Attorney General. When we had legislation, I always made sure that there was a Democratic author and a Republican author, so you could tell right on the face of the bill that it was a bipartisan effort, and that's the attitude I'll take as governor.
Drew, as most Oklahomans are always tuned into infrastructure, but also just economic development. Economics, of course, is a big picture in everyone's lives. And as governor, what would you do in your administration to promote, even more than it is, for Fortune 100 and Fortune 500 companies to maybe relocate or put a branch in Oklahoma? What would you do to enhance that attraction, I guess?
I think it's absolutely imperative that we get out of the cellar on all of our indicators, whether it's education or health or mental health or corrections. You know, we're at the bottom of too many lists where we'd like to be higher, and at the top of too many lists where we'd like to be lower. So investing in education, investing in our citizens' health, investing in mental health, both for its own sake and to reduce prison population. These are all things that are necessary. We've got to stop taking money from the Department of Transportation in order to fill budget holes and have a budget that's stable and growing. And in order to do that, we've got to get our fiscal house in order, and that in turn is what's going to attract industry. But I think it's important that what we do to attract industry into Oklahoma should also be done to encourage existing businesses to expand. You know, there are many businesses that have a choice about whether to double their plant size or build another plant in another state. And we want to make sure that all of the incentives aren't going to companies to move in, that we also incentivize the companies that are already here.
One topic that we've heard a lot in the news here in the last few months from the legislature, or from agencies, I should say, was kind of wasteful spending or just misuse of funds and things of this nature. How would you go about dealing with agencies, I guess state agencies? How would you go about dealing with wasteful spending?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. I intend to partner with...
2 easy steps, right?
Yeah. Partner with the state auditor, whoever that's going to be, and the state attorney general, whoever that's going to be, to keep an eye on wasteful spending, particularly if that spending is corrupt in any way. And I've got a track record of doing that as attorney general. We investigated over at the insurance department and ended up indicting and removing the insurance commissioner. We investigated at the health department and found the ghost employees that were on the payroll drawing salaries but were never at work. And those kinds of things, to me, they get under my skin just big time. As if we're going to ask the people of the state of Oklahoma to adequately support state government, we've got to be able to assure them that government is to the maximum extent humanly possible, efficient, clean, honest, free from corruption. And if we can't do that, it's hard to ask people to spend tax dollars on their state government.
Drew, you're very familiar with all parts of Oklahoma. Oftentimes I say, you know, we're all from Oklahoma, but we have such a different fabric or makeup of our work ethic, from Guyman to Yuko, as I say, or from Altus to Veneta and all points in between. But there's a strong worth ethic here in Oklahoma, and just the character.
Yes, sir.
And so along with those two lines of your professionalism and work ethic and also the character, what would you be bringing to the office of governor?
Well, I think my track record shows that I tend to be creative when bringing the applications of government to bear on a problem. And that's how we ended up with the Tobacco Trust at the conclusion of the litigation against the tobacco industry. No other state in the nation protected their tobacco money constitutionally the way we have done here in the state of Oklahoma. In a settlement with then Southwestern Bell, that's now AT&T, we created a $30 million technology trust in order to get computers and computer training into our schools. And both of those are still going strong after all these years. The Tobacco Trust, as a matter of fact, now has a corpus in excess of $1 billion. So it's spending tens of millions on cancer research and adult stem cell research and things of that nature. It will pick up the medical school expenses of a doctor who will agree to serve for a period of time in a medically deprived area of the state. So these things, as Attorney General accomplishments, show that I'm willing to think outside the box and work creatively to reach solutions. I would also mention that the character traits that I would bring to the office of governor include honesty, integrity, industry. I believe in working hard every day to get the job done for the people.
Another topic that's near and dear to individuals that we face every day is just that dependable infrastructure or the highway system to get us, you know, to where we're trying to go, to work, vacations, to see grandma, whatever it is. But we kind of like a smooth highway and a very strong bridge. So in your administration, what would you do that would really enhance our maintenance programs for our roadways and bridges?
Well, the first thing I would do would be to stop taking $500 million a year from the Department of Transportation in order to plug holes in the budget. I think that's counterproductive. Our 8-year rolling plan for highways and bridges is now a 10-year plan, with projects that were already on the books now delayed on average 18 months. That is unacceptable. The second thing that I've talked about, and I will tell you, I favor the gross production tax going back to 7% where it was. And I understand that gross production tax revenue fluctuates widely depending on the price of oil. It goes up and down. We have made the mistake in the past of building that money into the budgets of state agencies, and so when the price of oil goes down, you know, we have agencies in trouble. I think we ought to figure where's the lowest amount of revenue that is stable, whether it's at $30 a barrel or wherever it is, and feel free to put that money into the budgets of state agencies. But I will work for the day when an amount of money above that gets put into a capital expenditures trust account where it is only spent on one-time capital expenditures and is not built into the budgets of state agencies. So if the price of oil drops, we may have to put off building a building, but we don't have to lay off employees and curtail services to the citizens of the state of Oklahoma.
My special guest today on Ask the Candidate is Drew Edmondson, Democrat running for the office of governor here for the state of Oklahoma. Drew, there's a topic on, and I want to remind everybody that June 26th again is the primary date. Get out and vote. But there's some other issues on ballots, and one of the issues that people talk to me about that they're still confused about is this, medical marijuana. And can you tell us your views on medical marijuana and a little bit about what this bill, or I think it's House Bill 788, what's it's all about? Can you clear it all up for us?
Well, the medical marijuana issue is one that I've already stated I intend to vote yes on. I think the science is in on that, and there are legitimate medical uses for cannabis or cannabis extracts in order to stop seizures, pain, nausea during chemotherapy. There are a number of medical conditions that this has proven to be helpful in treating. Now, what we have is a petition that was drafted and circulated by the people, and it calls upon the legislature to draft enacting legislation. So we expect the legislature to act if the measure passes. If it doesn't pass, then it's a moot point. I think the state question might have been drafted a little more carefully if it had come out of the legislature instead of being a petition that was drafted and circulated by the people. So there are some things that the legislature may need to look at if this becomes law. One of the things that I would like to see is a little more specificity in the prescription process. A person can go to a doctor and describe a condition and will get a slip that allows him to go to a dispensary. As I understand it, that piece of paper is nonspecific. Legislature may need to look at that and whether the prescription, if we can call it that a person gets from the doctor is more specific as to the remedy sought.
Well, I appreciate you sharing your views, and we just always encourage everyone to do your research. Do your research on candidates and also on the things that we're voting for. It's very important. Well, Drew, I can only imagine as you've traveled many miles across the state of Oklahoma, you continue to see a number of wind turbines, turbines, whatever, show up more and more. And there was a story the other day, a national news story about an Air Force base in Texas having some challenges with wind industry down in Texas. They were just getting too close, if you will, to the Air Force Base. Now, of course, here in Oklahoma, and of course right here in Enid, Vance Air Force Base is very important to us, but wind energy as well. Under your administration, how would you want to facilitate, or maybe what would be your guidelines that everybody benefits? Wind energy, military, the state, Enid, everybody.
Yeah, I don't think people were paying enough attention to where the turbines were going in connection with Vance Air Force Base or Altus Air Force Base or Tinker for that matter. And they're starting to pay attention now. There was legislation passed in this past session, signed into law that will allow some governance over where the turbines go in relation to our air bases. And just this week, the wind industry spokesman said this is fine. We'll be happy to work with the authorities to make sure that's not a problem. I'm not an engineer and I never was a pilot, so I would assume that that's particularly important in the areas that involve takeoffs and landings, where the planes are certainly lower to the ground than they are normally. But we absolutely need to do that. Wind energy is a great boon to our schools. They pay ad valorem taxes. They're generating, we're number 2 in the nation now in the production of energy by wind, and I think by and large that's a good thing, but we can't let it interfere with the activities of our military bases.
Yeah, because Oklahoma certainly is a military base. Well, Drew, the city of Enid has embarked on a real challenge. As you're aware of, it's sometimes difficult to get a decent rain shower west of I-35. It can get pretty hot and dry in the western part of the state. And so when we do get that rain, we just really rejoice over that. But the city of Enid's undertaking a project to build a pipeline from Call Lake, Ponca City, we have water rights there, to bring it to Enid. And other communities here in northwestern Oklahoma is very excited about that possibility. And I say possibility because it hasn't happened yet. Now we're talking a several $100 million project for a community of Enid. Could be a little bit overwhelming. So the question is, as governor, what would be the state's role under your administration in assisting projects like that for the Enids of Oklahoma that may need, I don't know, just some financial help to get water to their community?
Well, if we're successful in creating the capital investment fund with part of the gross production tax, that would be an ideal project for a fund like that. Be a one-time expenditure on a capital project and not built into anybody's agency budget. I think that would be perfect for that. I don't know what funds would be available absent the creation of a capital investment fund like that. What funds would today be available to assist a municipality in that kind of a project? Now, we do provide funding, and I'm sure it's been cut in recent years, to the councils on government, the COGs, and I'm sure that Garfield County is part of a COG that may have funds available or will assist in grant applications to assist a project like that. And as we restore the budget, if funding has been cut to those entities, we can make sure that that funding is restored.
Well, Drew, there's two things that we've uncovered. Number one, it's very expensive to move water from Call Lake to Enid or Northwest Oklahoma, and that water is the new gold. We hear that phrase over and over.
Just parenthetically, I've got a picture of being in the Oval Office of the White House when President Kennedy signed the authorization for the construction of Call Reservoir. So I was there when the bill was signed, and I'd love to be in Enid when the water arrives.
Yeah. Very good. Well, Drew, we appreciate your time today, and especially visiting Enid. And this is the opportunity. We've gone through all of our scripted questions, if you will, that we've asked, or I've asked all the candidates. But I'd like for you to take this opportunity, take as much time as you want, and just speak to our viewers, and just speak what's on your heart.
Well, thank you, and I really appreciate the viewers who have tuned in for this show. Would it be this afternoon or this evening? Whenever it airs. Thank you for tuning in. We have a lot of problems in the state of Oklahoma, but the good thing about that is these problems are all self-inflicted. We have created these problems by the decisions of government. And the reason that's good news is that it means we can go in a different direction. We can reverse decisions that have been made that were poor, and we can make new decisions to take us into the next era of growth. I believe our capacity is unlimited. Our people are eager to work. All we have to do is make the investment in our people, in our schools, in our children's education, in our colleges and universities, in our health systems, our mental health systems, the kind of investment that will bring us out of the cellar on the indicators I talked about earlier. There's no reason and no pride to be number one in the incarceration of females, or number one in teen pregnancy, or 49th or 50th in support for education. If we invest, and invest wisely, I believe industry will come, industry will grow, industry that's already here, and that we can have the surging economy that's necessary to build a state that our grandchildren will be proud of. So thank you for your consideration. I would appreciate your vote on June 26th, and look forward to working with all of you on building a better state.
Well said.
Thank you.
And the program will air the weekend before the primary.
Very good.
We have an online TV guide that people will be able to see when the program airs. So, Drew, thank you for your time today. Wish you well, and thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you, Steve. Great to be back in Enid.
You're certainly welcome. And come back and see us. And thank you for joining us today on Ask the Candidate, program specifically from the Enid Television Network, and we appreciate you joining us today. I'm Steve Keim with the City of Enid, and until next time, make it a great day. Thanks for watching.